I feel like a lot of your art is reflective of where you come from and never wanting to leave your city behind and the people from the city behind. I think that anytime I've ever heard you talk about your success, you've always talked about the people here. And I think that figuring out a way that encompasses all of your history and the city's history and your art is going to be the most powerful. And the way you do that is figuring out how you became who you are.
You have just been in a lot of different places. Like, you know, when you think about your family and that's right, you think about where you went to school, you think about, like, you playing sports, you think about hip hop, you think about poetry, you know, sacrificial poets. Like, when you think about that thing, there's a lot of intersections across the community.
Man, this album is for me, man. Like, it's for Durham, you know, but it's also really just for me, man.
It's the North Cat, baby, I'm a boss. Carolina barbecue sauce with the slaw. I'm the safe, the cellar, and the vault. I'm the best, the effect, and the cause, I'm the law. Booty booty, やめるのはもう無理無理。根性がある山沢くん、ラップトラックも売りすぎ。グリグリ、俺の名前が次々。Couldn't feel north, this was Chatham County though. Almost went to Northwood. Four-wheelers, dope dealers, slow living in church folk. RC colas and cars, hogs and dirt roads. The pain used to burn slow, but never let the hurt show. Alright, come on. Beep, beep. She is super duper fly, deeper than a scuba dive, a demon who can move the sky. An angel with a halo and some boots and my snapback with a backpack, cause my rap pack don't need no suit and tie. If you try and bake, then I'm trying to get the cake. You try and capitalize, but I'm trying to cap the face. Switch pace if the fakes try hate. Snakes are shaped like the food that they ate, and rats can't shake off the dirt from the day. The derby don't wait if the herd in the way. It's harder to say that you learn from mistakes the minute that kitty cat purrs in your face like. Mama waiting tables, Papa in the kitchen. Emily was hostess, I was doing dishes. We was trying to make a living on the come up. I'ma stay true no matter what I do. Raised in a family serving food. Just made sure I wasn't in a dining room. Cause mama waiting tables, Papa in the kitchen, Emily was hostess, I was doing dishes. We was trying to make a living on the come up. I'ma stay true no matter what I do. Cause I was raised in a family serving food. Just made sure I wasn't in a dining room. Mama always had.
Welcome, everybody, to Tadaima 2021. My name is Rob Buscher, and I'm the Tadaima Film Festival curator, and it's my great pleasure to be here tonight with Mr. G Yamazawa. G, would you like to introduce yourself?
What's going on, everybody? It's good to be here. G Yamazawa. Really happy to be here.
Yeah, so basically the structure of this program this evening, myself and G are going to have a conversation for the next 40 minutes or so about his music, about growing up being Shin-Nisei in Durham, and the impact that that has had on his music, as well as the music videos that we've been featuring within the film festival. And then within the last 15 minutes or so, we're going to open it up to audience questions. So for those of you who are following along, please enter your comments and questions into the YouTube chat. So with that, G, thanks again for joining us tonight. I think, I've always been really captivated by the lyricism within your music. I remember the first time that I saw Dining Room, though, and I had heard some of your songs before I saw that video, and that was like, it just like hit me like, wow, like this is incredible, because I think for a lot of Japanese Americans, we're not used to seeing those kinds of stories about our community, and a lot of us have a history of restaurant and food service in our family backgrounds. But of course, at this point, being a yonsei myself, like fourth generation, we're starting to get farther removed from the immigrant experience. And, I was really taken with the kind of origin story that you put forth in that particular video. But just your music in general, I think, has been an exploration of that, as you mentioned in the Durham versus Everybody intro video. So maybe you could kind of start us off a little bit by telling us kind of what it was like growing up in Durham.
It was chill, man. It was in so many ways you feel normal. Well, in many ways I had a fairly normal childhood. It's funny, man, because I try to answer this question differently every time if I can somehow. And I think every time I get asked it, and the older I get, the more I'm unpacking it and kind of processing it. And especially, I just moved back to North Carolina about 6 months ago from LA, and I haven't lived here since for about 10 years. And so now that I'm kind of circling back here, it's sinking in a whole different way. It's cool, man. It's kind of extreme on both angles. So it was in one hand, it was extremely difficult because any room you walk into, you're just hyper visible. And sometimes the people around you don't really know what to make of you. And neither do you sometimes. And so learning how to navigate through that, just attention from such a young age. And on the other end is really cool because you're the only Asian friend that this person may have ever had in their life. And you get to kind of introduce these new concepts and different ways of different belief systems. And you're kind of any friend group I'm a part of, it's immediately diverse because I'm in it, and so there was definitely a cool kind of duality to it growing up.
Yeah, because I think one of the other things about your identity and just the persona that you have within your music, we don't see a lot of Asian Americans visibly in the South. And obviously, this is a large and growing community in a lot of the bigger cities. I know Atlanta has a growing Asian American community, but we certainly don't see a lot of Japanese Americans, right? And so, I think one of the things that has always interested me about like the Japanese American community in general, we have these regional identities. Especially like anyone who grew up outside of the West Coast, we have very, very specific regional identities where oftentimes, whether you're a descendant of someone who immigrated before the Immigration Act, or if you're a descendant of someone who came after, oftentimes we're the only Japanese Americans in our community. And so I think a lot of people can relate to that, but it's sort of that specific lens that you have. Because I think, maybe I'm not mistaken in saying this, but you identify as much someone from North Carolina as you do a Japanese American, right?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it for sure.
Yeah.
Yes. It's hard to say when people talk about community, in terms of their community. Sometimes it's kind of a difficult concept for me personally, because I didn't have any sense of a Japanese and or Asian American community until I was 21, 22, going into the art scene, the Asian art scene in DC, and then on to Los Angeles. And so really it's kind of like, and they're both kind of similar identities, actually. You'd be surprised, kind of a smaller town, a more unknown, underrepresented kind of state and region, but also mixed with the JA. And I don't know, man. Sometimes it's weird for me to say JA. Like I don't even, because it's such a unique and you know, what do you, I don't know the word, but you know what I'm saying? Like for me, I was an Asian kid. So, but yeah, man, identity is kind of crazy, man, to think about.
Well, because I think, and that you're kind of touching on this other point, right? This idea of like what it is to be Shin-Nisei, right? And like, you know, being someone whose parents are immigrants, when there is such a, I think, of people who know about Japanese American history, like there's a tendency to think about this dominant narrative of like, you know, Issei coming in the late 1800s, early 1900s, Nisei being children or young adults during the wartime incarceration. And I think for folks who aren't descended of that particular lineage or experience, there has obviously been some challenges historically in terms of being able to align with that part of the community, because unfortunately it is such a big part of our story, right, as a national Japanese American community. But at the same time, like I've seen you be able to connect to that as well, like the stuff that you've done with Heart Mountain and the limited jersey run that you had of the Heart Mountain baseball team. But, you know, maybe you could talk a little bit about, you know, how it was that you kind of came to those conversations around the incarceration and trying to make sense of that as someone who's obviously part of our community, but hasn't experienced that, doesn't have to experience that.
You know, what began as just getting invited to perform as a poet, I kind of got welcomed into these spaces, and it is such a blessing, man. I think without that, and without kind of my work and my kind of artistic endeavors as kind of the gateway to be able to be welcomed into these communities, because I think for a lot of people it's very difficult to navigate and meet people and kind of connect without really knowing what people's intents and intentions are and stuff. So it started in DC, and it was specifically at this Smithsonian event, a Day of Remembrance, where they showed the Legacy of Heart Mountain film, and David Ono was there, and I got to meet him, and we connected, and that was the first moment where I was like, I had a visceral reaction to the incarceration history. And it had never really, like, I took a minority studies class in high school, and I remember it being this paragraph, like this literal paragraph, and me being like, kind of, but then that was really it, you know. And I think it just kind of was a catalyst for me kind of realizing, oh, this is actually inherently a part of my, what would you call it, identity, and it's something that I really want to learn more about and figure out ways in which my voice can kind of help aid in the overall, you know, awareness building and kind of community building. And so from there, I was invited to Heart Mountain, and did all kind of different programming and stuff like that. And that's where I kind of continue to learn and hear stories from folks who was born in camp and grew up in camp, and their children and their children's children. And yeah, it's been an incredible experience for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things that, as you say, you know, it has a visceral impact, right? And the idea that, like, you know, the reality of just being who you are was enough to get someone thrown into a prison camp. I mean, I feel like that's kind of enough to unite anybody behind a particular cause. But, you know, it's interesting as we continue to navigate like what it means to be Japanese American today. Like, our community is so diverse now, right? Because, I mean, although Shin-Nisei may still be in the minority, there are a lot more folks who are descended of folks who immigrated in the post-war era. There's obviously a lot of mixed race individuals like myself and multi-ethnic Japanese Americans. So it's kind of like, I think there's an opportunity as well to kind of explore this through art. And I think that's certainly something that you've been doing with your music and with your videos. And maybe we can kind of pivot the conversation to talk more specifically about the videos that you've been working on. I was really taken with the video that you did, the versus everybody, because I think like I noticed these kinds of things about your music and your videos, and I mean I assumed that this is like what you're also thinking about as you're kind of putting this work out into the world. But it's also refreshing to then have this like confirmation that yeah, like this is informing like the artistic journey. And what was it like for you to, first of all, what was the process behind that, and what was it like for you to kind of put something together that obviously did make use of some of the other footage from your music videos, but was kind of a standalone product outside of the music?
I think the main question I was trying to answer in my head was like, what does this mean? What does this mean right now? This moment in my life of me moving back to North Carolina, kind of completing a circle, if you will, and what does it mean for my journey, and where do I go from here? And I think because of the state of the world, because, and I'm also like a very hit the ground running kind of guy, like I'm out, you know, I make time for everybody whenever, as much as I can. And I think with COVID and everything, I really was forced to sit still. I was forced to, you know, at a time when I made that video, I was staying at my parents' house. Me and my fiance are staying at my parents' house. It's like, you know, it's a big life shift, and didn't have a studio up and running, and was kind of feeling a little just antsy, you know. And that project gave me just another form of a voice, in a way that I've been excited about recently. In the last year, I've been doing more film work, bought a camera, and it's like, man, I gotta use this mug. You know, what do I do? And what is a solo mission that I can do during this lockdown? And so, and that's something I'm actually still really excited about exploring, getting behind the camera. I've been in front of the camera a lot, and so I'm trying to kind of really not limit myself as far as what the voice means, and what the voice can do, and what are the different variations of your voice. And so that's kind of how that came together. Yeah. I think I forgot. I feel like I asked a different question though. What was that? Did I answer that question?
No, I mean, yeah, you had definitely answered it. And I was curious, like as a follow-up on that, I was curious if you could elaborate about the voices in the film. Like who was doing the narration, and what is the context of that within your story?
Well, so the first voice is my fiance Chris, and I just kind of candidly started recording this conversation about what it meant to be back and what I should do. And the second voice is my poetry coach and mentor, named Desana Hanu. Same thing, kind of just pulled up on him, was talking, and kind of tricked him, and kind of took some sound bites. Yeah, man, I honestly, watching that piece still makes me kind of emotional, man. I think just something about piano too, you know, solo piano to do that to you. But it was great to get to, I feel like, just kind of go back to all of these landmarks in my life, and realize that, you know, this little piece of content was really about me, and really about kind of trying to document how I felt in that time. And so when I see it now, I'm just like, oh man, like what a crazy moment that I'm on the other side of now in a way. And so that's been important for me as far as developing the voice. Back to your question, is just kind of being very adamant about making sure that you are using your voice as much as possible, not only to develop it, but also to sort of document your life and the times that you're in. And with art, sometimes in kind of the production of it, sometimes time it can become irrelevant, and it gets difficult to kind of have output that really matches how you feel in that moment. And so there's always generally this lag. But that was a great moment in that, like, and now content is getting so time sensitive, that it's a lot more possible to get to release and put forth work that actually really represents how you feel in that moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely speaks to that specific moment. And I think the reason I had asked about the narration, you can tell just by the timbre of their voices, like how close of a relationship that is with both of them. your fiance and your poetry coast. So I think like, you know, having that context, I think it makes it a even more meaningful piece, to be able to kind of have that. It's one thing again for you to be saying something like that, but it's another thing entirely for the people who mean the most to you, to have that awareness and the understanding to be able to articulate that, which they did very well in that piece. But you know, thinking a little bit, yeah, about that time specificity. I mean, that brings up like interesting thread. You know, the whole idea of like how Japanese Americans have used art in different forms sort of throughout the community's history to document the experiences that they're living through. I mean, like art was a big part of how people navigated the incarceration camps and, you know, the post-war resettlement. I mean, a lot of visual artists, but also musicians were active in both the camps as well as a lot of the cities that people resettled in. So I mean, and obviously is a great way to sort of navigate these like turbulent times that we're living in. So that certainly makes sense. But I wonder if we could maybe go a little bit further back into your career, talk a little bit about the clips that we saw were from a selection of videos we have highlighted within the film festival programming at Tadaima. And basically, I chose these particular videos because I felt like to me at least, these were the most tangible exploration of identity that I could see visually. Obviously, your lyrics go into this in many of your songs, but from a visual storytelling component, there's some really compelling stuff in each of these videos. And chronologically, I think, was it Super Duper Fly that was the earliest of those videos that we had shown?
For sure. For sure.
So can you walk us back? Like, what you obviously were in Tokyo. Were you like just hanging out? Were you visiting family?
Yeah. So that was 2014. And we had just won the National Poetry Slam. And right after that, I was going straight to Japan. And it was my first time going there by myself without my family. And I hadn't been there in maybe like 7 years or so. And so, man, what a trip, man, you know, going there by myself and having to speak for myself and find my way around. And I also was sitting on a mixtape and I had no visuals for it. And had a lot of good momentum going, you know, like I said, we had just won. And so I was just on this high and I was 23 years old. And yeah, linked up was staying with a homie who knew a homie who shot videos. And I think it cost like $200 or something like that. And we just went out one day and we hit the train, we hit the park, and we went went to Harajuku and yeah, just got it in, man. And yeah, I got the iconic, you know, Shibuya, you know, shot, and it was incredible. And that video went viral. And so that one, I think it got like 1.4 million views on Facebook. And it's funny because it was at the time when like the meme-ish video descriptions in the video on the top and bottom was like first starting to get really big. And I think the meme description was like Japanese American hip hop vibes or something super corny. But I guess it worked and people were enjoying it. And so that was kind of a big milestone for me in my rap life as well too.
One of my favorite shots from that video is actually, I think it might be in front of Meiji Jingu, and there's like a bunch of bachans. Yeah, the bachans are like hanging out and vibing to your music. And like, can you tell me a little bit about that? That seems like it wasn't staged. Were these just
no, we were just there, and they thought I was really famous, and they were down with whatever. And very shortly after, the security dude walked up and was like, "Bro, y'all can't be doing that shit right here, like right at the front entrance." You know what I'm saying? The park. But they were dope, man. I think they made the video for sure. Anybody seen that video is like, "Yo, the grandma house." Like, yeah, that was a special moment for sure.
Well, then, and it was kind of funny because I remembered watching that, and then when we invited you out to the JACL National Convention that was here in Philly back in 2018, you performed at the Barnes Foundation. I don't know if you could see as far back as the whole crowd, but we had a lot of Bachans and G-chans who were like bumping like, to the back.
I remember. Yeah. I remember. That was what a special night. Yeah. Yo, something about old people like me, yo, like I love it. Like old folks just fuck with me, man. So it's a blessing.
Absolutely. I mean, it goes to say, you know, like, and I remember some of the commentary actually from our folks at the JCL thing. And, you know, a lot of them were like, you know, I didn't really understand everything he said, but I really liked the beat. And hey, he looks like us and he's on stage and he's doing his thing and people enjoy it. So like, we're going to support him, you know, which I think, I mean, that's just something about the community, right? And like a community like ours. But yeah, so again, for me personally, I think Dining Room was really kind of where I started paying attention, because I saw that video. I don't even remember where or how, but it came to my attention, and it just struck me that it's like, at the time I was living in Chinatown, Philadelphia, and I was actually working in a Chinese restaurant, and I knew a lot of people in the community who had like these family run businesses that were second and even third generation restaurant families. So to be able to see something like that was specific to the Japanese American community, I thought was really powerful. And, you know, that was your parents' restaurant that you shot in. So can you talk a little bit about what it was like to produce something that was that personal, that was, you know, very much, you know, autobiographic in the lyrics, but then also getting to utilize the space that you grew up in?
It was a lot, man. It was so even before getting to the video, so that song was a part of a EP, and my first kind of real attempts at songwriting. Like, I have written songs and stuff, but this was a really serious effort that I was putting into wanting to make a record, and kind of really try to wiggle my way into some form of music industry, whatever that meant, and did a Kickstarter for it and had the homie produce the whole project. And mind you, this is also coming off of years of writing poetry about my Asian American experience. And so I had developed a strong voice as an Asian American at that particular time, but not quite as an MC quite yet. And I had also talked a bit about my experience growing up in a restaurant, but it wasn't until I heard that beat that I realized I hadn't really dug deep into what growing up in this restaurant really means for me, and how it really shaped who I am, both as an individual and also as an artist. And so it was my first time kind of really taking a poetic approach to music and hearing a beat and wanting to make a record that really embodied the heart of what I was doing, which was poetry, but also make it dope. And, you know, and so it's funny. I mean, watching the video and hearing the music and hearing the like quality of the mix and things like that. And just like, all I hear is mistakes, but I can see myself and hear myself working through kind of just the process. And so that being said, like when it was time to shoot the video, man, it was nerve-wracking, man. It's the biggest thing I've ever kind of tried to take on. I'm trying to really, and especially as a rapper too, man, this is a whole kind of another conversation about authenticity and your story and who are you? Like, why should someone listen to what you got to say? And what is it about you that's relatable to me? And what are the things that you care about, you know, and why do you care about these things? So these are all the questions I was trying to answer at the same time. And so yeah, man, I just kind of wanted to start getting to the nitty gritty of my story and realizing that it really began with my parents. You know, I grew up, I was born in 1990. They had the restaurant. Yeah, I grew up in a restaurant, man. And so that's all I've ever known. And so it was just kind of about that time. And what's really dope is it's the same guy who directed the North Cac video. And his name is Kid Ethnic. He goes by Kid Ethnic. His name is Salim Reshamwala. And he's actually quarter Japanese, He's mixed with like all kind of stuff, and he actually lived in Kumamoto for a while and speaks Japanese. And so when we were working on the video, you know, he's talking to my parents, and my parents feel more comfortable, and it was this really rhythmic kind of synchronized effort. And so yeah, it was great. The worst part about the whole thing is just how long and disgusting my goatee is. Like, I'm just looking at it like, I can't believe I grew my goatee that long. Like, what was I thinking? But yeah, man, one of my favorite songs for sure.
What was it like working in your parents' restaurant though, right? Because I'd imagine, you know, like they must have had some specific things like, oh, don't do this or do this, or did they get involved at all in the production? And that was, I think your dad at least was in it. Was that also your mom that was in the one
in the record?
Yeah.
I got him in the studio and got some sound bites, and that was really dope. What else? What'd you say right before that?
Like, did they have feedback on how you utilized their space? Because it's like it's their restaurant, right? And so they're used to like.
The only thing that was in a way untrue was the big plate of sushi, kind of the classic style of just kind of a Japanese steakhouse type feel. But at that point, they had started transitioning into kaiseki dining, and kind of 8-course meal, you know, traditional dining. And so it wasn't the kind of restaurant that they wanted to portray, at least in that moment. But it was true to their history, which is just, you know, a good old Japanese spot. So that's about it. But yeah, I think they enjoyed it as well. The hardest part was finding a Japanese kid, like a little Asian kid, any kind of Asian kid that remotely looked like me. But my homie was like an elementary aftercare teacher and like knew this, so we kind of made it happen. So yeah, that was cool. Had actors and stuff too.
So let's talk a little bit more about the Southern identity piece, because North Cac is like the anthem of North Carolina, right? Like, I mean, at least for the time period when it came out, it seemed like everybody who lived outside of North Carolina that was from North Carolina was like, knew that song and was all about it. I remember the second time that I met you in Oakland outside of the Cam Fest, some dude from a food truck from North Carolina gave you a whole container of cornbread and it just said North Cac.
Yo, that was, I remember that. Yeah.
But so, you know, what was it like to kind of have that song that, you know, I assume that that's not the only kind of interaction that you had, like from other folks that were living outside of the area?
Man, it was dope, man. It was really crazy. I really didn't expect any of it. And by that point, I hadn't lived in North Carolina for like 5-6 years. And it wasn't really meant to be an anthem, you know. It was just kind of a slapper that I would just kind of, and I really literally missed barbecue and slaw on it, and just like on a tray, you know, like a styrofoam tray. Like, I missed it. And so the way it went crazy, and I kind of got to really experience what going viral kind of can feel like, and just the phone just blowing up. And my life changed, man, from that point forward. And at that, I think from that point, it marked this new chapter. And honestly, man, and been till probably last year that I feel like I slowed down off of that momentum that moment created. And so I think a lot of things went right for that to go off. I think me being an Asian dude was like a big part of it. I think people were just like, what is going on? Like, and just kind of went along for the ride. And again, Celine with the video. I mean, it was incredible video as well. And so without that video, it definitely would never have did as well as it did.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a very innovative style, right? The one shot, like no cut take. I mean, it has like a really great like film aesthetic technique, right? It's like from like a hardcore film studies perspective. But aside from that, I mean, it just like it's a killer track, and then it just everything works within that video.
Right.
Thinking a little bit about sorry, you go ahead.
Now I was gonna say, like, I saw it make its rounds in different communities in really cool ways. So like, Asian people's rocking with me, North Carolina people going crazy. At the same time, like the dance community kind of took onto it because the homies crumping all through it, right? And it's just got an infectious kind of dancey vibe to it. And then also the workout community started going crazy. So like people boxing and training and working out to it. It's like, bro, I never exercised. This is so ironic. And then of course like the foodie community. So if you go to the thread, there's just all of these different kind of communities that are really taking to this song in a way that was really, really, really cool.
Yeah, I mean, and it kind of speaks again to like the myriad identities that you're bringing into that, right? Even if the lyrics aren't specific to your ethnicity, like representing the Japanese American community, like folks are still going to support that and be excited and want to get behind it. I think it's been interesting looking at some of the more recent videos that you did. I think Yao Ming was the video where you used some home movie footage, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about like the decision to integrate like home movie footage, and also like how did you select that particular footage that you interspersed throughout?
So man, that was the director's idea. The director was Dan Giraldo, and he runs a company called Nimble Fox. And so he's done, he did the Breathe video. They did the Drumathon video. And so great directors. And I think one of those things where we were just kind of strapped, there's just no bread, there's just no money to be able to really take an idea and kind of go as far as you can with it. And so I think that it was my way. First, it started with, I knew I was coming home and doing this big birthday show, and I thought it'd be a good opportunity to just get a lot of people in one place and just rock out. And so that was the plan. And then and this is one thing he really brought to my attention is, you really want to, the story is what drives kind of the emotionality of art. And so it was their idea to kind of, I had the kind of like idea of like going throughout the day and kind of ending up at this show. But at one point he was like, yo, do you have any home video stuff? And so we just started scrubbing and we came across some stuff. And I actually edited the first version of that video, which was really cool because I was first learning how to kind of use the software and get it in. And but then we passed it off to his other editor who just killed it, man, and just really dug deep and found these clips. And yeah, it was cool, man. It was really one of the most meaningful videos that I put out for sure.
And I think it really speaks to being able to hold space for multiple identities at the same time, because I think, I mean, it's kind of like, hey, like this is my past, this is my present, and like all of these things make me who I am, and like this is part of the story, which is exciting because, I think again, so many times for Japanese American, Asian Americans in general, we're sort of forced to choose between one side or the other. Like we're either American or we're either from a specific region or we're Japanese. And it's hard to be both at the same time to the same extent. And I feel like you're on that path to like having been able to do that. And I think articulate that in a way, especially through that video, which is exciting to see. And, I think, it gives me a lot of like hope for how we can continue to explore those narratives in the community.
Right.
So thinking about, I think the two other videos that we had in that selection in the film festival was Buri Buri, as well as the Rich Chiga freestyle. Maybe we could talk about Buri Buri first, because I think you told me a while back that was that your first verse that you did completely in Japanese?
Hi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was that like? Obviously, you're bilingual. You speak to your parents in Japanese, but it's something different, obviously, to then kind of take that to the public, right? And to be putting something out there that obviously is who you are, but you know, still it's not the language necessarily. Maybe it is the language you feel most comfortable in, and I'd be curious to hear your thoughts around that.
Man, so I was have been going back and forth to Japan a bunch leading up to writing that song, and so I remember like walking through Japan after having been there for a little while, and kind of couple few trips in, and just like walking around like, yo, who am I? Like, well, like you really like, you're just like, who am I? You know, and you know, when you're thinking in different languages, you really feel it on a very, you know, metaphysical kind of level where you're just kind of, and also Japanese culture and kind of lifestyle is just very cerebral as well. So there's just like a lot of inner workings going on at the time. And so I just kind of naturally also just caught myself thinking in Japanese more, which was just like a cool thing to notice yourself doing. And not only that, I was also for the first time like kind of making my own friends in Tokyo, and like folks that are in the business and in the industry and in the scene, and artists, producers, and just all kind of folks, and I felt myself really building some kind of bridge, and I just, yes, again, just had this desire to want to try to write a record in Japanese. And so a lot of my best songs are just like I'm walking in and it's the beat that the producer is working on in that moment. And so he was just, you know, and of course it's a Method Man sample. You really can't go wrong with that sample too. But yeah, slow down trap. And you know, this is a Japanese dude in Japan chopping up this Method Man sample over some trap drums. And it's just like, whoa. And so, yeah, I mean, I was really inspired. And actually I've been working on music, not Japanese music, but bilingual music as well, man. So I think after this next project, the next project will be a full length record in Japanese. So I'm pretty excited about it.
Well, I'm excited to hear it because, you know, I think, yeah, there's still at this point pretty few Japanese American rappers. I know Miyachi was also on that track, but it'll be exciting to see like what you do with that album.
Hey, yeah, I'm excited.
So I forgot, actually, we did show another one of your videos, Sound Right, and thinking about like how, you know, that to me is probably the most Southern of all your videos, right? Because like it starts like you're walking in the convenience store and then you're at the lakeside cabin, and it just feels like that environment. And you know, within the lyrics, you're also talking a little bit about like the locality. And at what point did you make that video? At what point did you write that track? I assume that's after you moved back to North Carolina.
Man, I shot that video in 20, definitely way before the pandemic and before I had moved back.
All right.
And was kind of sitting on that video for a long time because I didn't know what to do with the song. So the song, once the song ended up on the album, I was able to put it out. Yeah. But yeah, man, that song is me like going deep. So I grew up in Durham, and also I rep Durham heavily, but I also really grew up for a large part of my life in Chatham County, Pittsboro, which is a little more rural North Carolina. And so, yeah, like my, you know, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th grade era was when I dealt with a lot of different stuff. And it was like a really formative time in my life. And so yeah, that's like real country shit. Like it's really out there. And so I think that was my first time kind of really wanting to go there and kind of dig up some of that for myself as well too.
Yeah, I mean, with that context, it's interesting because it kind of feels like, you know, you're talking about some really serious stuff in that track, but you're also, there's this kind of nostalgia that I get from it, at least. And I think that makes a little bit more sense knowing that that was before you left Los Angeles. Yeah. Yeah, so I know we're going to open to questions from the audience soon, but I just wanted to talk really briefly about the Rich Chiga freestyle because, you know, I thought that that was really interesting. That was one of the videos that, like we talked about in our previous conversation. And after the fact, I went back and rewatched it and I was thinking, oh yeah, there's a lot here to kind of explore, but especially in the lyrics, right? And, you know, I think at a moment when our community as Asian Americans is sort of grappling with the aftermath of the George Floyd uprising and the kind of social discourse around racial justice and equity and trying to understand our position within those conversations in society, it struck me as a really powerful kind of critique on, you know, some of these other rappers who kind of like appropriate from cultures that they don't belong to, kind of thing. And like that's kind of what I got like in terms of some of the lyrics that you had. And I'm just curious if you could elaborate a little bit on, you know, your thoughts around that. I know that he's since changed his name to Rich Brian, but yeah, if you could elaborate, I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts.
Yeah, man, that was the thing is I wasn't quite angry, or nor did I have like this kind of calling out attitude about it, even though it really is what it feels like. But it's I think it was just jarring for me as an Asian dude who grew up rapping and grew up here and grew up saying the N-word like all the time, like it was like, you know, being encouraged to say it, like, you know, being kind of being groomed in these kind of environments. I think it also, I think I was fortunate. I kind of had a privilege of then going into the poetry community and the nonprofit grassroots organizations into kind of just a higher consciousness level, as we all do as we get older in general. But with the poetry community, it's a very intensified attitude about it all. And so having that kind of my own reformation, if you will, on my own time, and then to be taking my art and my voice very seriously, and then for this cat named Rich Chiga to come out, say the N-word in a really viral record, but at the same time, like I'm watching this like spectacle. It's like a spectacle. It's like, holy shit! Like this is, people love this. Like, and really hip hop really actually embraced him in that moment. I don't know if you remember. Like it really was only Asian people that was mad at dude. Everybody else, no one cared except for Asian people. And I think that it was less about me trying to call him out as much as it was me just kind of processing it for myself. And wanting to just kind of shed light on how I feel. And actually, I probably should go back and really watch it before I even say anything too definitive about how I feel watching it, but doing it. But that also was kind of a cool. The issue is too, man, it's like the beat is so fire, man. Like that beat. It's just like, I really just wanted to rap on it too, you know? And so it just got me fired up, and I think it was a moment in Asian American history, honestly. And I don't know if Ijima was after that, or it might have been before that. But there was a big shift that happened in that 2014, 15, 16 timeframe that I think we're still being kind of affected by now in a nuanced way. So yeah. But I kind of was also speaking to just the generation that we're part of now, in which like being woke is I don't know, man. It's just a lot of nuance. There's a lot of nuance, and things are really complex. And so I guess the thing is, for me, especially as an artist, anytime you see something that you don't like, it's just too easy to just share an opinion about it, to me. And so as an artist, the most sincere and serious way for me to respond and add input is to create, and is to say something creatively that can touch on it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it makes a lot of sense. But I do want to save some time for these audience questions. We have one from Julie Abo, who asks, what do you want people to take away from your work?
Man, I love the "Are your parents cool?" like the second part is great. Like, are they supposed, like, are your parents cool? They're cool as shit. What do I want people to take away from my work? Just that I care, you know, that I care, and that I care about people, I care about the world, and I care about my relationship with my craft. And this is definitely, I think, more than just where do you put it? It's I don't know, man. This is just like this is serious. And so I don't know. That's kind of an interesting question, because I find that, like, when you ask yourself that question too much, it actually negatively impacts the shit that you create. And so it's a really weird catch-22 where I think that all artists have a level of responsibility that's really important when they're considering who they're speaking to, and what it is that they want people to receive and get from their work. And at the same time, that can also be a hindrance to that exact same effort, where actually, if you just focus really deeply on what it is that you're most passionate about, and you try your best to really express that as honestly and vulnerably as possible, people will get something from it. And that I love all the really intangible ways that art affects us, and that we're affected by, and that what you can create can affect someone else as well. And it's just, there's no way you can ever quantify it, man. And I know that it works in mysterious ways. And so when anyone sends me a message and says that they were moved in any kind of way, it's just the most incredible thing to me. And it keeps me going. So I think, but to answer the question directly, I think I would just want people to feel happy to be living life, man, and to have a more deepening experience in their lives based off of hearing or seeing my work.
Yeah. And I think, to your point about, you know, not thinking too deeply into how folks are going to perceive something, I doubt you could have imagined that North Cac was going to be taking off in the foodie community, right? So there's audiences out there that you can't even conceive when you're writing a track.
Right, but, right. I guess it's different if you're like a children's book author, you know what I mean? It's like a little more restrictive. But yeah, that's why I love being an artist, man. You just the freedom and the liberties to express yourself. So
absolutely. So I guess on that note, Shirley Omori asks, are your parents cool? Are they supportive of your career path?
Parents are cool as hell. Yeah, man, super cool. I was super fortunate to have parents that support him, any artistic, creative, any kind of endeavor since I was a child. And also kind of really always urged me to take it very seriously. Like, if you're going to do it, do it. And I think I learned a lot of direct lessons from them, but also, again, from the restaurant, I kind of watched them live their lives the way that they wanted to, and on their own terms, and kind of with less tools than I had to be able to convey their culture and who they are, and provide a service and provide an experience for people, and to take it seriously is something that I definitely is ingrained in me. And so, man, I'm thankful, because a lot of kids, a lot of young people are not supportive, or not supported by their folks in the creative realm. And so hopefully that's changing nowadays too as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, culinary artists don't get enough credit for being the artists that they are. But the reality is, you know, creating something, even food, that makes somebody feel something. There's a real artistry to that. And then obviously, in the extreme amount of patience that it takes and the presentation that accompanies Japanese cuisine. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, your parents are artists as well. So it makes sense that they would support your vision in working in a different medium.
Right. Right.
So we've got another question from Julie Abo, who asks, can you tell us a little bit about your creative process? And I guess, you know, take it as you will if you want to talk about the lyricism or the video production or both.
It's changing, man. It's definitely changing. It's generally fueled by some kind of goal, some kind of big goal. And so I think, you know, since I was a child, like drawing and dancing and music and rap has always been kind of like just natural for me. Like I'm gonna draw or I'm gonna do something creative. But when I got in a poetry slam, and I came up rapping, so competition is a really big driving force for me wanting to like rap is really a sport to me. It kind of sometimes is approached like that more so than an art form. And when I got into poetry, it was a great way for me to be a little more heartfelt, but also still had this goal of winning the National Poetry Slam and being in these slams and chopping heads and winning rent money and, you know, kind of going through the ringer. And so I think I allow like these really big goals and kind of markers of like quality and success give me momentum to create the best work that I can to kind of fulfill that goal. And so I'm not sure if this is answering the question about the creative process, but how do you put it? I guess it's changing, man. It's really changing. I think COVID really messed it up. COVID made it good and bad in a few ways. And so the good part is that it just gave us time. It gave me solitude that I really enjoy personally. And it gave me a lot of just that inner world, allowed me to just go into my world and create. But at the same time, it also eliminated any human contact and kind of the ability to share your work with people and kind of regain momentum and energy that gets fueled back into the art. So I've been kind of dealing. I think that's also why I'm excited about film right now, because it's a little less dependent on a live audience or the reciprocity of a crowd. And yeah, so I'm kind of going a little more inward creatively right now, which is kind of exciting thing. And I'm actually working on, I don't know if I want to say this tonight, but I'm working on a documentary, a short doc about my parents right now that I just began. And so, Rob, man, I'm actually hit you up sometime soon and pick your brain about, you know, walking into that field. But yeah, man, it's an exciting time, and creatively, I think I change based on the age I am and where I'm at in life and how mature I feel and what kind of schedule I have. So.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And absolutely feel free to reach out anytime about that. I think we have time for one last question. This is coming from Kurt Ikeda. Who's another poet of color that you would recommend for young Nikkei to be inspired by? And his second question is, when is the Rob Buscher G Yamazawa collab coming? So I guess as soon as you hit me up about that.
Hi. Poet of color, so many. Recommend for a young Nikkei to be inspired by. I go with Bosia, off the top of my head. So can I chat in here? I can't chat in there. But Bosia, Beauusia. Just an OG poet. Also Bao Fi. Out of Twin Cities, man, is a serious. I read his book, man. I forget the title of it, but it changed my life, man. Lee Young Lee as well in the academic realm, as far as trying to really study the lineage of what we do, specifically for poets. Ocean Vuong too. Like Ocean is heat. Yeah. But there's a game, man. There's a lot out there for sure.
Well, that's exciting. I'm gonna have some time on my hands to like look up afterwards. But
Right.
yeah, but I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us tonight, G. I don't want to take too much more time. I think we've run out of time for questions anyways. So yeah, just really appreciate you being a part of this. Any last remarks you want to share with the audience?
Man, thank y'all for having me. Should we answer this one last question before
Yeah,
we
might as
start?
well. Sure.
We won't get kicked out of here, will we?
No, we can do one more. Yeah.
All right.
So Juliabo has one last question. How much is your work influenced by place, where events in your life have happened, and how does that change over time?
A lot. I think my work is. I wonder if you mean by place like where I literally am in my life as I'm creating. I think is what or maybe even just I think a lot, man, a whole lot. Like, and I'm the other thing is it's hard to tell is like for all of my 20s, I was on the road. So like I was, even though I like trying to move from DC to LA, that whole time period, I'm just doing 100 dates a year, and I'm like living on the road and out of a suitcase. And so a lot of my early stuff musically was like me in a rental car driving for multiple hours and just like listening to beats and never being in a studio with other producers or with other writers, and it never was a collaborative experience. And so that's why I think a lot, especially in the poetry stuff, is just a real cerebral kind of approach to music. Yeah, in LA, man, like it was a crazy time, and it definitely influenced my work to want to be more, what would you call it? What would you call it? You've been in LA. I don't know what it is, man, about it. It's just showbiz. There's no biz like showbiz.
Yeah. I mean, it's the LA people sometimes, but I feel like you're one of the rare few who kind of had a good enough head on their shoulders to say, like, I'm from North Carolina. Like, I can do good work in North Carolina. Like, I will continue to explore this in North Carolina.
Right. Yeah. So being back home is I'm excited for this next album, and clearly I'm being heavily affected by where I live and where I'm at, and the seasons changing. We talked about this briefly too, man, and rain and bugs and humidity and the pace. And so I'm really excited about this next phase of work. So yeah.
All right. Well, where can our audience follow you, and where can they get updates?
I'm at G Yamazawa on all things. Even got a TikTok now where you check it out. But I'm not hard to find. Yeah, thank you again for having this, man, for real.
Yeah, thanks, G. It means a lot, and I our audience will definitely appreciate this. So yeah, stay safe, keep doing good work, and we'll see you back hopefully again sometime on another program.
Hi. Arigato. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Peace, Kurt. Thank you, Julie. Everybody else.